Welcome to Season 2 of Frontline Fridays, brought to you by Ubik. I'm your host, Ron Thurston, and this season, we're digging deeper into what it really takes to lead on the front lines of retail and hospitality. Together, we'll explore the biggest shifts in frontline work and how smart leaders are navigating them to drive results where it matters most. Each episode, you'll hear from top executives, industry experts, and powerhouse operators who share practical tactics you could put to work immediately. Today's conversation is about what it really takes to lead through change. In an industry where new demands hit daily, leaders have to bend without breaking and teach their teams to do the same. My guest is Detria Courtalis, Vice President of Sales for the U.S. and the Caribbean at Pandora Jewelry, and a member of their North American executive leadership team. Over more than 3 decades, Detria has led the sales, retail, and wholesale teams through transformative growth, franchise acquisitions, and landmark product launches. She's recognized as a bold, authentic leader who consistently drives results while fostering a culture of resilience and people-first leadership. In our conversation, we'll dive into the habits and mindsets that allow leaders to scale change and make it stick. Detria, I'm so happy to have you on Frontline Fridays. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I love it. So I love to start every episode with how I know you and our relationship. And so funny enough, we didn't actually know each other, surprisingly, given both of our tenures in the industry. And Laura Ravo, who was on season 1 of this show and who has become a dear friend of mine, said, you need to meet Detria. She's one of my greatest friends and allies, and you work together. And I know you guys would like each other. So here we are.
Yes. Laura's amazing. She was actually my boss at one time, and I learned so much and so appreciative that she introduced us. So thank you, Laura.
As am I, yes. And I feel like you and I will continue to do a lot of things together, including the NRF, which we're going to speak about.
So exciting.
So exciting. So I would love to just start with a little bit about your personal story and this kind of concept that you speak about around a mindset of change, because your career has been rooted in change. Retail is an industry of change. There's no denying that. So walk us through just how that has developed for you and why it's important.
You know, I think it really started when I worked for Laura back then, and we were invited to the Limited Brand Stores Community Days, which was select leaders that got to sit and listen to Les Wexner, back then, one of the retail gods, talk to us. And he said, the world is constantly changing, so we need to change. And retail needs to change if you're going to continue to grow. If not, brands die. And that always stuck with me, that you need to continue to learn and change and grow in order to become successful, not only personally, but also as a brand in this world.
And how has that showed up in your leadership? And I don't use the term leadership style. I don't use that generally in language, because our style evolves. Our fashion style, our hair, not that I have any, evolves, and the industry evolves. And so this constant state of leadership evolves with it. So how has that impacted you?
Well, I think being a leader means that you're open to change, or being a great leader, that you're open to change and you're willing to change and adapt. And that doesn't mean change your hair or whatnot. It means changing and thinking about your thinking styles. How flexible are you? And that is super important when you are working with all different types of people. You have to flex into that. It's super important too, because as a coach, it's not about your style. It's about the other person's, because how they receive the information and process, it's like a learning style almost, right? People learn differently. People have different styles. You can't judge it by the external appearance of someone, right? Or where they live. You can't have any preconceptions at all. What you have to do is get to know them. And that's important. Just talk to them, asking the open-ended questions. Tell me a little about yourself. I always try to get to know the team members. Tell me how you learn. Tell me how you like to receive feedback. So then you learn that. But then I think that's if you have time with someone. If you don't have time with someone and you're just going in, maybe it's a store visit and you need to address someone, I think starting from the point of care first and positive intent. Maybe they didn't mean for X, Y, and Z to happen. So it's saying, hi, talk to me about this. Explain this to me. Because the world is diverse People's thinking styles are diverse. It doesn't matter about external appearance. It's what's inside their heart and in their head. And it's asking those questions and building those relationships. Same with the fans. Exact same thing. Talk to them. What do you want your bracelet to mean to you? And find that out. And when you deal with different diverse customer bases, it's the same thing. They all receive information differently. And if the business shifts, how do you change quickly to that? How do you adapt? And I think it's how you continue to grow and lead, and it does frame you. And people struggle with that, to be honest, Ron. I mean, I'm sure you've come across that in your times in the stores.
In many ways, I also think it's something you need to teach. This is what change can be. This is maybe how you navigate it or how you teach it. Because I think you're right. Some people are naturally of like, bring it on, I'm ready, like make it happen. And others are like, hold on, Detria, like another program, another new initiative, like what's on the agenda this week. And for some people, that's really hard. You've also found that?
Oh, totally. I think you have three types of people almost in a way. Those that are super quick. What do you want me to do? It's Tuesday. Okay, I'll change. No problem. I'll go a different direction. Those that need a little bit of time are those that are the late adapters to change. And I think it's first and foremost, it's knowing your people or knowing who you're working with. And then when you're building something that you need to course correct, thinking through the good, the bad, the ugly with it. How will everyone react to that? What could the response be? So you kind of think about all those different types and those learning styles in order to better deliver the message. And then I think sometimes it's like, the change curve. They adapt, but then something happens and they re-struggle again. I think it's being open to that, being patient, listening, but also motivating them and what it can do, thinking in the possibilities of what the change could bring to them, which could be positive for them, for the company, for the organization.
Very much so. The opposite of that sometimes is also staying very true to what you know is right. And I think that that's also a strong leadership trait to, yes, your ability to navigate, change, flex, be Gumby, as you say, and at the same time, like stay true of like, no, this is our mission. These are our values. We don't steer from these things. These are important. How has that led in your career?
It's not always easy because you're being pulled in so many directions. But to your point, if you have that moral compass that you stay consistent with, right? If you lead with your head and your heart together, I mean, you stay grounded in the people and you understand what they're going through. But the fact is, sometimes you have to change, right? Especially now with the world and tariffs and everything's happening. It's like that famous interview question. How have you delivered a message that you may not agree with, but you still had to deliver it and take the company road? So I think there's a time of, okay, I hear you. I know you're struggling with this, but this is what we have to do, and we need to stay grounded in that. How can I help you, and how can we help others? But I think it's keeping that moral compass, that gut instinct to people first, always.
Always. Agreed. As I was getting to know you, and I think this is true of many successful executives, particularly in retail, is always raising your hand for more. Always saying, you know what, can you move here? Sure. Can you take on this stretch assignment? Can you extend your reach? Can you mentor? You describe yourself as someone that always raises their hand. And I actually think it's great advice. It's advice I give often too. Be the first one to raise your hand, because that's how you get seen. That's how people mention your name in the room when you're not there. And tell us about that in your career.
Well, it's actually a little funny story because I didn't realize how much I did that. I think it was kind of innate. And my husband one day said, can you stop raising your hand for this? You just said you're working too many hours or you're traveling here or traveling there. I'm like, but it's so exciting. I think that's the thing. Staying curious, being excited, anything's possible in this world. Is it hard as heck? Is it challenging? Yes. But I think if you want to grow, you have to do that. It's not maybe the 40-hour, work week, not that it kind of ever is, but it's trying new things, which for some people they don't do it because they're scared. And I think you have to take the risks. And I'm risk adverse in some aspects, but when it comes to work, I'm very into like, let's take this challenge, let's take this jump. What's worst case scenario? You screw up, you make a mistake, you fall, but you also surround yourself with people that you trust. So if you do make the mistake, you just don't make it twice. But you try new things that also can then open doors of areas. Like you, I started out as a part-time sales associate, got my first kind of jobs and then started an assistant manager training program. But then, coming to Pandora, I didn't know anything about wholesale. And I was like, well, let's go for it. Let's learn something. I'll try it. And you have your bumps, you get knocked down, you get back up. But I think if I wouldn't have done that, now I have both sides of the business, which is super cool because it's engaged my learning, and my personal growth. So raise your hand. What's
Raise your
worst case
hand.
can happen? Slap it down, try it again.
So true. I remember a few times, I think I was probably a district manager, kind of on a path to corporate. And I would get pulled and say, you seem like you'd be a really good recruiter. Like, let's give you a stretch assignment. It was a Gap. They took me to San Francisco. I sat next to the recruiting team, made phone calls, did interviews. And I really thought I was going to be a recruiter. And same, raised my hand. You want to try this? Sure. And then they're like, but you're also really good at visual merchandising. Can you try that too? And so I think that there's this sense of know what you're good at, raise your hand for more when you see the opportunities and just go for it. I never wanted to be a corporate recruiter, but I was a really good recruiter for the field because it's just a natural. You have to be. It's a natural skill, and you have to be a good merchant, and you have to be a good coach. You have to do all of it.
Well, that goes back to being a retailer. You have all these skill sets that you have to do within the scope of our store environment.
So let's jump in because I want to speak just a little bit more about just the evolution of Pandora. So when you arrived, it was a very different company.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And what it stands for today, because it's such an important, well-known brand in the retail ecosystem. So take us on a little bit of a journey of Pandora the last 5 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as you know, I've been there. It'll be 14 on Halloween. I love celebrating. It's one of my second favorite holidays next to Christmas. And I started in a very different role as the head of training because I just wanted to get into the brand, doing different things, raising my hand. I fell into the director of franchise and real estate, which it basically was just the mall stores because back then we were only wholesale. Franchise and then multi-brand dealers, a wholesale channel was all wholesale. And then, let's open a few corporate stores. Okay, let's try that. Okay, what happens next? And the journey continued and evolved, and some franchisees sold back, some we kept moving with, some we opened corporate stores. And, in the last 5 years and with COVID, the brand has changed dramatically. And I think, number one, that's why I've stayed here so long because A, it has a lot of entrepreneurial spirit. B, I've learned things that I would have never learned anywhere else. And C, I feel like I've worked for 3-4 different companies. The last 5 years, or I would say 4 years even, we're on the map now. What we've done as a brand, and I attribute that to the amazing leadership, my boss, Luciano, the global CEO, Alexander. We have, in 19, we completely rebranded, and then COVID hit. So we had to get scrappy, think differently, and then coming out of it super strong because of our products and what we stand for. We give a voice to people's love. And now the channel has very much shifted to basically 75% almost retail owned and operated. And then we will always have some franchisees in some countries. And then obviously the wholesale channel where we have multi-brand. We just launched with Dillard's Department Store, which is an amazing partner. So it is very much changed. And again, you have to go with it. But it's been so cool And there's times when you're like, well, banging your head against the wall a little bit. And then there's other times you're like, oh, wow, can't believe we just did this. And so it's been an amazing journey. And now to see Pamela Anderson being our representative for our lab grown diamonds and everything we're doing in the social channels and London Fashion Week, it's a pride that I cannot explain.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful. And you're right. It's very much on the map. It's in every major center and city, and you see people wearing it. I know you have a massive fan base who's obsessed with you. And I think part of that is also being company owned. You control the experience. And so how has that, you referenced your customers as fans, which I love. And so you would say, our fans, our real fans, are also not just liking us on social media. They're not just followers, they're customers. Your customers are fans. So walk us through that a little bit.
Absolutely. It's being in retail, someone comes in, they're coming to buy something. I tell them they're not shopping for pizza, they're coming in to buy something. And that's a customer, right? I think what happens then is you turn them into a fan because the experience that you give and the product you sell. And that is a blessing we have. Our product, charms and bracelets, whether charms and carriers, bracelets, necklaces, whether you put a charm on a bracelet or you put it around your neck, it brings a voice to that fan's love and it turns them into a fan, right? So a charm could mean something very different to me, and it could be the same charm that you like, but it means something very different to you. So you become a fan and the stories behind it. So we started to switch our verbiage of not calling, and it was an adjustment for me initially because when I started Pandora, I was like, oh, everybody's a customer. And they're like, no, our customers are our multi-brand dealers and our franchisees. We have consumers. And I was like, calling them consumers is kind of odd. So I don't know when it actually started the shift because it doesn't happen overnight. As you know, when you try to change a culture, then we shifted the fan. Fan, I think, says something different than just you're coming in just to shop and buy something. You have become loyal. You're a loyalist. We have a loyalty program. You have become that. And so sharing their stories and our stories together is what makes that fan experience different in our stores. And it's a process and it's taking time. I mean, we're not perfect yet. And it's something that's super exciting for us to continue on that path.
Yeah, because similarly, other brands would kind of differentiate client from customer, and this, what you're saying is, what, if you're in a Pandora store, you're a fan of the brand and we're going to celebrate you. You're buying hopefully our product that really celebrates love. There's an emotion attached to it. That word, similar, I believe, to the word pride, they have a relationship with that word. And that's why I love that you're using this word fan, because it's one of those words where you have an immediate emotional reaction. Customer, you don't. You hear that word all
There's
the time.
lots of customers.
Like, you're a customer. Okay, fine. But when you're a fan, we could go old school and talk about raving fans and like that book. That's kind of, that was the predecessor to Retail Pride. But this idea of like, fans, if you describe yourself as a fan, you're making a commitment verbally and emotionally to a team, to a brand, to a product. It's really a fascinating journey. I'm really curious about this.
We started with the charm and bracelet, right? That is what our foundation is, what we're known for, and how we came to the US. And in the very, very old days, they would give free bracelets out. Didn't cost anything. I'm talking 20 some years ago, right? Because the goal was to get people to come in to fill the bracelet. And so then they become a fan. So they keep coming in. So, now I'm thinking, why didn't we do this a long time ago? But it brings their stories then to life and they come back. They're a fan of yours. They like you. They want to visit the stores. The stores are beautiful and we carry amazing products. It's gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. And because you started in training with the company 15 years ago, that's, I'm sure, very close to your heart. And at the same time, I'm sure hiring great people, thinking differently, training, onboarding, career paths, those are all very high on your priority lists. So you want to share any tips there?
My foundation was very good, similar to yours at the Gap, limited brands, right? Where this was how we operated, right? Succession planning and all that. Coming to Pandora, they didn't have any of that. When I walked in the door 14 years ago, I was like, do we have traffic counters? We should be tracking conversion. And they looked at me like I had three heads. They're like, conversion? What's conversion? And I'm like, you can't just hire anybody. You have to hire top talent. And they're like, what's top talent mean? So it's a very slow journey. But what I'm really excited about is one of our kind of key pieces that we are going to be delivering over the next 2 years is around a true succession planning path. You can come into the brand in different ways, right? You can come in as a fan. We hire fans. You can come in as a part-time sales associate. First time this last year, we started an internship program. You could come in as that. And then creating that path, right? What are success profiles? What are core competencies for each role within the organization? Even thinking about the different volume levels. I think sometimes when you're starting in retail, you don't realize being an assistant in a low volume store versus a high volume versus a flagship, very different.
Very different.
But showing them that and having that path and that journey for them, that's why then they'll stay with you. That creates retention because, to your point, it's a different world. Yes, it's about pay and benefits, but giving them that path. So we're just scratching the surface, but I am super excited because to me, it all starts and ends with people. Top talent, the best of the best. Now, what do we do with them? How do we coach and develop and keep them with us for the long haul?
And one of those things often are those clear career paths. Ubik was one of the first couple of years ago now to come up with data that really supported the fact that, the number one reason many people from the front lines were leaving was because of the lack of clear career paths. I don't know how to become Detria. I don't know how to become a district manager. How do you address that as Pandora and just think about it, I guess, as an industry?
Either way, whether it's Pandora, and again, like I mentioned, we're just really starting on the journey, but I think about myself and my team, other leaders in the organization is talking to people. Most recently, I was in Miami and we brought in all the store managers for a quick meet and greet breakfast. And they do want to know how I got to where I am. They also want to know that you can relate to them. I've had, like you, the floods of the back room on the day before Christmas. I've had 500 cartons show up the night before a big executive visit. I'll never forget, I had a big wad of gum on the G on the Gap when I was trying to get ready. So they want to know that we've been through this too, and that there is possibilities they can get to where we are. Now, you need some structure around that, and we're working on the structure. I think being humble and showing that they can get there and how we coach them, being honest with them, and even if they want a path into corporate, maybe they have an interest in HR. So maybe they have the DOR, the division of responsibility in that store of being the talent person. They do some trainings. They sit side by side the store manager to do some coachings. Right? They do some mall walks looking for great talent to maybe go that recruiting. So we breed in stores the next leaders in my mind. And I think the goal for us is to continue that. I mean, that nothing would make me happier for someone to come to me when I'm 80 years old and say, I was an assistant manager that worked for you a long time ago. Like that to me would just be epic.
I don't think you have to be 80.
Well, it'd be fun to think about that. Like you're walking down the street with your cane and you're cute and and someone comes up to you. I mean, that to me is, we're building future leaders.
We are. And it's our responsibility as leaders. It's all of us together sharing wisdom, knowledge, leadership tips, feedback is our responsibility. We learned it. Other people taught it to us. It's the kind of the university of retail life, is that there's no book, there's no degree. As much as I love going to or speaking at FIT about their studying like retail analysis, there's no book that teaches you how to run a store. You just got to do the work and you got to get in there and you got to suffer the pain and you just can do the work and take the wins, take the losses, all of it. But when you get the result and you have those people coming up to you that are so grateful for the impact you had, when you see the change and you see the customer experiences, and particularly in jewelry, which is a category that I just love to explore because it's so connected to special occasion and love and gift giving. It's the best part of shopping, of that. It's so much more interesting than buying yourself clothes. I think that this journey that we take people on in this industry can't be understated. And clearly you do it with a great joy in your heart every day.
I mean, you think about, you kind of move through your career so fast, right? It's like, get to next, get to next. I'm gonna be assistant. I'm gonna be a store manager. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. And you're think you're ready at times and you're not. And, there's physical pain, there's mental pain, and you move so fast. You don't take a minute to say, what's my purpose? Why am I here? What am I doing? And even the things that you go through, both personally and professionally, you wonder, okay, why did that just happen to me? Why did I have that situation happen to me? And you look back and you find your purpose. And I truly believe, and I committed this year to reaching out to different people that I had worked with, that I really had learned from over the years. And the common thread of what I'm seeing, what I'm gravitated to, is how do I make someone better? And how do I motivate them? And sometimes and I'm sure, Ron, you felt this way at times where you almost want it more than they do. And then that's when you have to decide, okay, are you willing to do the work or not? Because no one's handing anybody anything, especially nowadays, right? And so you go through physical pain of working 12, 14 hours a day, getting ready for those jet trips and painting the fitting rooms and doing all that in those days. And now you go through the mental drain, which causes physical drain, right? So it's very different to help people through that. I've made lots of mistakes in my career and I want to share them because then maybe someone won't make the same mistake and they'll learn something from it.
Is there one in particular that stands out to you that you share often?
Gosh, there's so many. I remember when I was at the Gap, I thought I was ready to be a DM and I got mad I didn't get promoted. And I'm like, peace out. I'm out of here. And I went to Structure. And it's technically not on my resume because it's one of those things that's like 6 months, right? That I'm totally embarrassed about, but I'll share it. I went to Structure because they promised me, like everybody does sometimes back in those days, oh, you can do this, you're going to do this, you're going to be a DM. And then I realized, yeah, I made a mistake. I wasn't ready. And that was a dose of humble pie. And also to be totally honest with myself and have self-awareness and look in the mirror. And then you go through those different times. Even here, when I came to Pandora in the earlier days and I was a director, I was like, what do you got to do around here to be a VP? It was like way early days. And I remember my boss back then, who was one of the key people that brought me in and taught me so much about wholesale. She goes, how about some hard work? Like you got to pay your dues. And it was so funny because it's very different, right? From a wholesale perspective and writing orders and dealing with, franchisees and multi-brands very different than retail. So the good news is I have a lot of mistakes to look back on that I learned from. And my motto is don't make the same mistake twice.
That's exactly right. It's so funny because I write about it briefly in Retail Pride, but I knew I wasn't ready to be a DM. And then I had one of those jet trips that you described.
Yeah.
And it went really well. And like 2 weeks later, I got promoted. And I'm like, wait, hold on. Like now I have 10 stores. Like
they clearly liked you better than me.
It was just a good day. Like the week of Christmas, people were in a good mood. And, and same of like, all right, then I'm just going to have to figure this out. Because somebody believed in me. Someone thought that I had the ability to at least grow into this role. And same, I was not good at it overnight. I was what people describe as a district manager that runs as the GM of 10 stores. That was me. But you learn how to delegate and you learn how to hold people accountable.
I'm having a flashback of my first DM job. So I left Structure and I went to this other place for a little bit. And then I went to the Body Shop. And the regional that hired me, her name was Carrie, and she's now passed away. God rest her soul. She gave me my chance. And I'd never been a DM. I had 7 store manager positions open. I was like, and I was not a good recruiter. I was not. And I was like, wonder what I do now. And it was rough. So, you think of those defining moments. So you were better equipped than I was when I
I don't know about
started out.
that. I think we just figure it out.
Yeah, you do. You do.
And
Do
here
or
we are.
die.
We survived. See, that's what's important, Detria. We made it through. Last couple of things I have, for us is really just, when I think about leadership and people who are great leaders, we talked a little bit in the beginning. They know when to be tough or direct or clear, but at the same time can be warm and full of empathy and know how to connect. And say, you work in a jewelry business, which is all about human connection. So how have you navigated that need or those competencies in your life?
It is something I think everybody at times goes in and out of struggling with, right? And first and foremost, I try to stay grounded in where I came from. I came from a very European family. My parents now are both passed away. We didn't have much money. And I stayed grounded in my dad said, be a good human. And then you go through different things and you make mistakes and you're too tough on people at times. And you don't realize, because I am very direct. And I don't know how I got this way. I guess I was born that way of being direct. But then you learn how to soften it at times in different environments. But you make a lot of mistakes. You definitely, I've had to say sorry at different times. I've had to pull back at different times. Or I have to say, listen, I'm not kidding. Like, this needs to change, right? I think the best thing to do that I would coach anybody starting in retail, or even now being older in retail or more senior positions, is feedback is a gift. Never feel like you can't give someone feedback. It's all in how you say it. And then even if it's very tough feedback, but then end it with the motivation and the empowerment that they walk away from you feeling, okay, I just got it. I got my, handed to me, but I feel I have the tools and the motivation and people to support me that I can do it. And that's what I try to balance. And I hate that whole negative sandwich thing. Start with the positive, blah, blah, blah. No, just, this is what's not going well. Let's discuss it. This is my thought. What do you think? Right? Use all the coaching skills, ask versus tell,
What
feel,
do you
felt,
need?
selective
What are the
agreement.
resources that they need?
100%. But then uplift them that they can do it. And that's when it gets then to skill or will. It's who we are. We have to constantly coach and want the others to learn from us and do better.
No one's good at it overnight. That's
and
the part.
I still make mistakes.
We
when
all
pressure
do.
Gets tough.
Yeah.
Sometimes it gets into tell direct. You need to hit a number. It's right. And then, okay, sorry, that was tell mode. Let me start to coach.
But you're honest about it and you're real about it and just say, look, here's the situation. And this is how I communicated it because of this. The severity of it required me to be like this. And that doesn't always make it easier, but it puts some context maybe behind your tone. Last question. I often like to end here just around advice. And for leaders listening, field, corporate, anyone listening, when you think about becoming more of a change agent or being willing to adapt to this rapidly changing world that we live in, what advice do you offer for that?
I think first and foremost, I would urge everyone, no matter who they are and what their industry is, to look in the mirror and answer this honestly. How do I react and handle change? Because sometimes it's not what comes at us, but it will always what comes at us, but then how we react to it. And then choose to react with possibilities and that things can be great and get better. Then being very authentic. Share how you feel. Oh, that was tough. That didn't feel good. I do struggle with this piece of it. Okay, then let's talk about it. So I think honesty about yourself, having self-awareness is a critical skill that any people leader, whether it's retail or it's grocery or it's hotel, whatever, has to have, and then work on that yourself. Because as they say, you have to be good inside. You have to almost love yourself. You have to coach yourself in order then to help and support others and to maneuver in the world that we're in and do it with positive intent. The world is tough, but do it from love and care and kindness.
I absolutely agree with you. And it's funny because part of that I write about quite a bit in Human Pride is that of like, what are your particular strengths? What are you optimizing to get the greatest? And that is, you're right. What you're describing is self-awareness. Thank you, Detria. It was really a pleasure. I'm excited for you, the future of Pandora. Have a very successful holiday season.
Thank you.
Yes.
Really appreciate what you're doing for all of retail and Human Pride in general. It's amazing.
Thank you very much. Today, Detria reminded us that leading in retail isn't about avoiding change. It's about staying flexible enough to make change stick, and that developing resiliency, whether in sales teams, store leaders, or franchise partners, is just as critical as launching new products or expanding stores. So for everyone listening, here's your challenge for the week. Pick one change you're tackling and assess whether it's delivering the impact you wanted. If it's not there yet, check that you're giving your team the clarity, coaching, and support they need to move it forward. Because big transformation takes time, and they're built in small, intentional steps, repeated consistently and with heart. Thanks for tuning in, and a special thanks to Ubik, the presenter of Frontline Fridays. Ubik is the AI-powered platform that helps retail and hospitality leaders connect, train, and empower their teams. Ready to make your frontline your competitive advantage? Visit Ubik.com. That's YOOBIC.com to learn more. Until then, keep leading boldly and keep flexing with courage.